I was coming in this morning, I'm giving everyone hugs. I'm in between weddings. This is good for me. This is amazing. I came 8.5 years ago. One of the things I really did was I hit the road and I started traveling all around and I kept meeting incredible people. And for 8.5 years, I kept thinking, what if I can get all those people in one room? That power is really here, and it's really amazing. I want to thank Donnie Erber, who's here, and also Joseph Loeffler is here, who both of them have been shepherding me, involving me. We need to get everyone together. We originally were going to do it on the heels of Art Basel. Unfortunately, because of the war, we had to push it off. And we've been talking to them for a long time about getting people together. So thank you for pushing us, and we made it happen. I also want to thank Stuart and Jake, who's there on Zoom, and Louis, who are VOD, the executive board. They were part of the 5-person team, Jerry and Sandy also, who hired me and gave me a chance. I think many people have heard about the rest stop in Delaware that I was hired when I met Louis halfway to Silver Spring with Jerry. But it's been a real journey, and the one thing they committed to me, and I've said this told the story many times. Stuart got on the phone with me, and I love the way Stuart said we had challenges. We were bankrupt. I mean, it was we were like, I my first meeting. This is friends I can share here. My first meeting was in December, and they said, "Oh, that is great." The person I met said, "We finally balanced the budget." I walked in July 1. We were 3 months behind on payroll. Every hallway I walked down, we owed someone 6 figures. And Stuart, I remember our first phone call. He said, "Look, I want you to know that I'm a student of Noach, and I'm not going anywhere." That was the first thing he said to me. And really, Louis and Stuart and Jake, they have stood by me through this whole growth process. So they really deserve tremendous amount of credit for I also want to thank the staff here, especially Randy. Where is Randy? There she is in the back.
Yeah.
Randy did this from A to Z, and Lily, and we did all the education. I feel a little bit like a parent. You tell your kids stuff over and over, and you think they're never listening. And then I listen to Teal quote me and Jamie quote me, and I'm like, oh my God, they heard. So I'm having a great time here. And my philosophy has always been, in terms of staff, is that you find good people, you put them in charge, you stay out of their way, and make sure everyone else stays out of their way. I've never understood micromanagers. If someone else can do it better than you and you can take credit, all the better. So that's the secret of my success. But really, they've done a terrific job. I'm very excited. I also want to thank, this is very special for me, that my wife Rachel was able to be here. We did an engagement party for my daughter Saturday night. We had someone else's engagement party Sunday. There was a brisket. There were a lot of things going on in my family, and as many of you know, my travel schedule is really due to her in 8.5 years, except for Ukraine. She's been behind me. She wasn't thrilled with that one. And thank you to all of you that told her that she was right. She really has been behind me, and it's very special to have her here with me today. I just want to start with some words of Jewish wisdom. This is our conference, Aish, HaTorah. I can still use that title sometimes. But I want to start with some words of wisdom from Maimonides, from the Rambam. It says in Ethics of Our Fathers, in Pirkei Avos, it says, Knela chaver, right? You should acquire for yourself a friend. And Maimonides has a commentary on the Mishnah, and he talks about the fact that's really strange language, right? We make friends, right? We all got together, we're getting to know people, we're making friends, we're getting closer. What does it mean to acquire? It sounds like a business deal, right? To acquire a friend. And Maimonides says there are 3 levels of friendship. He said there are 3 levels. He said the first level is a friend of benefit. He calls it a friend of benefit. We work together, we do business together. Many of us have sat in offices with people for maybe 10 years, 15 years. We know each other, we do work with each other, but I don't know them as deeply as I might know others. The second category he calls a friend of enjoyment. This is a buddy. This is someone that I could have fun with, I could joke around with, someone who knows me, and he says importantly, this is someone I can seek advice from because they know me. Right? That's the second level of friendship, right? Someone we can have a good time, a buddy, but we can also, I can come to you for advice. But then he says the top category of friendship is a friend of virtue. A friend of virtue. He says, what is a friend of virtue? A friend of virtue is when you connect on a common goal. And he says so beautifully, what's so beautiful, what I found so beautiful about it, is it's so basic. What do you do together with a friend of virtue? Tov. He says you do good. He doesn't go into what that is. He doesn't say it's, he just says you do good together. You get together, you have a goal, and you make the world a better place. That is, according to Maimonides, the top level of friendship. And being here, one of the things that really spoke to my heart when I came into Aish, I've shared this with so many of you, was Rav Noach's title of partner. Everyone was a partner. It was a partners conference. We were partners, right? We're together. You're not here and I'm not here, and not vice versa, but we're here. And the Rambam says that is the highest level, and that is really what Aish is made up of. And I feel that friendship here in this room as we go forward. And what you've seen is great, but it's nowhere near where we need to be. Elliot Mathias and I, we drove down to see a donor in southern Jersey, and we're talking in the car on the way back. And we've done a great job in 3 years. Most places would just be happy. And meanwhile, we're miserable, right? We're miserable because we need to do more and we need to be more. And I'm so happy that all of you could be miserable with us. Very special. I don't want to go into the history of 8.5 years of the technical details. Many of you in the room know it and have helped me along the way. Isaac Gross, Bob Diener, David Moore. A couple of people here know kind of what we went through to kind of rebuild Aish. Aish was, as I say, a small business that became really big and internally hadn't caught up, and we needed to catch it up. So I don't want to go through that today. We can always talk about it another time. But what I really wanted to talk about is what I saw in Aish, what drew me to Aish. And I believe what drew me to Aish are really the ingredients that went into Aish Vision 2030. And there were two things that I saw in Aish. And I have to tell you at this point, if you ever go to my office, I've got this big stack behind my desk. I have read every Aish business plan written in the last 50 years. I have read everything, I've spoken to everyone, I've downloaded it all. And to me, it came down to two things which spoke to my heart. The first piece was responsibility. Rav Noach Weinberg had a sense that the secret of the Jewish people for 3,500 years has been taking responsibility for each other. And that means two types of responsibility. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, right? He gave us the Torah. He spiritually took responsibility for the growth of the Jewish people. But he also saved us from a genocidal maniac in Egypt who was killing babies. He physically saved us. There's physical responsibility and spiritual responsibility, and those two are inseparable when it comes to Jewish people. People do not understand. I was trying to explain, we have a non-Jewish consultant that helps us at Aish, terrific guy. I love him, he's amazing. I'm trying to explain to him that every single time a soldier is killed, everyone knows that face. Everyone knows that name. We feel that responsibility, and that responsibility Rav Noach passed on to people. And that's why people said, Aish Torah, you're reaching out with Torah and all these pieces. What are you doing with Hasbara Fellowships? What are you doing with Honest Reporting? What are you doing with all these other organizations coming out of Aish? And you can see it today even with EFG, right? Our students take leadership responsibility on the NYU campus, go there. Who are the kids that are standing up for Israel, for the Jews? It's our kids. Being to all these other places, we're continuing to lead, and it's so important. So responsibility was the first piece. The second piece was the Almighty, was God. I found that there was such an obsession with making the case for God, so much so that Discovery was a worldwide seminar that took the world by storm, just making the case for God. Because, I'll let you know a little secret, none of this really works without Him. And as I've said so many times, that Torah and mitzvos, right, commandments in the Bible, they're a means to an end, and the end is God. That closeness to God is inseparable to who we are and why we do what we do. And I always quote, Rabbi Berkowitz told this to me, and this Torah changed my life. It was in this past week's Parsha. I'm sure many of you have heard this to me many, many times. Rabbi Berkowitz points out in the first commandment, I am the Lord your God. It goes on to say, that took you out of Egypt. And he says, look, I understand the first commandment's got to be God, right? But why mention Egypt? Egypt, it's a beautiful thing that happened, but it's just something that happened. We've had all kinds of things happen to us throughout the ages. So he quotes the Smak, who's a Rishon from medieval times, who says, that believing in God is only one half of the commandment. It's to believe in God, and He has a plan for the world. We believe in God, and we know you cannot read a book about Jewish history and not understand that there is a plan for this world, and we need to be a part of that plan. That is really what Aish comes down to. We need to be a part of that plan, and we need to do our part by taking responsibility for the Jewish people. How do we do this? 3 things. I see it in 3 things that cut across all of Aish. The first piece, I call 3 E's. Embrace, educate, and empower. What does embrace mean? Embrace, I could talk to you about recruiting, right? We're finding Jews online, and we're doing a good job digging up Israeli Jews here, right? It's not just about finding them. They're not leads. It's about embracing them. It's about hugging Jews, even if it's online. These rabbis from Aish.com that do these chats, they are hugging Jews through chats. They're hugging Jews through phones. They're hugging Jews through... It's a mentality. The Jewish people are strong when we embrace each other. And so when we go out, and I believe that Aish has this duty, because no one can find unaffiliated Jews quite the way we can. I don't want to be in the same space as everyone else. To me, that's fine. There's so many people dealing with the smaller percentage of connected affiliated Jews. I want to be in the space where no one else is, to find the Jews that no one else is. But that's our job. We can do that, and we can embrace them better than anyone else. Once we find them and we embrace them, the second piece of the puzzle is educate. We are educators at our heart and soul. We believe in education. We believe in knowledge. We believe it's up here. One of the most common questions I get asked as I travel the globe is, what is the difference between Chabad and Aish? Right? And I have very close ties to Chabad. I think they're great people. I've talked about many times with them, and I've said many times, Chabad is experiential. They want you to experience. They want you to put tefillin on. They want you to mitzvah. They're amazing. Aish is more intellectual. Chabad wants you to do something. Aish wants you to think about something. And by the way, both of those are crucial. Both of those are crucial, and I'm thrilled that both of us are doing what we do. But educate, I believe that the Aish system of education comes down to 3 things. I call it the pie system of education. Passion. Every time you attend an Aish lecture, or even if it's something on Instagram, you see the passion exude itself, right? I'm looking at Jamie Geller. No one's more passionate, right? The passion, Teal Golda, everybody, Joe Bear, the passion is always there in every piece that we give over. The eyes for inspirational. You walk away inspired. You walk away feeling different. That inspired me to go do something, to be something, to go somewhere else. And finally, the E is for educational. We cannot leave the substance behind. This is not like a cute meme that you get sent around about, thinking about others. It's rooted in Torah. It's about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. It's about Sarah and Rivka and Leah and Rachel. It's about the Bible. It's about the books that surround the Bible. It has to have meat on the bones. That was a gift given to us by the Almighty that we have to give to others. Our job is to do it in a simple way so that it can be ingested and it's palatable to the average Jew. And finally, the third, embrace, educate, and empower. We need to empower people. Aish has always been about leadership. Always been about leadership. I have a good friend of mine who is a member of the Pillar Site, couldn't be here, Ozzy Mandel. Some of you know, Ozzy sent his son to Aish, and then told Rabbi Rossman and I he can't send his daughter because it's the first year of school, and then she came to Aish for a year and a half, right? Great, great guy. And from the beginning, Ozzy came to me out of nowhere and said, my son wants to go to Aish, and you want to know a little bit about it. I said, look, Ozzy, you can absolutely send your son to Aish, but you need to understand he's going to come home and want to change the world. You just need to understand that. That's how we roll. That's how we operate. It's not just he's going to educate. He's going to be educated to become a leader. We don't do it without that. And here, we're going to walk away from this conference empowered to do more. I said to many of you, I think Aish will benefit from this conference while we're doing it, right? But not just Aish. I believe there are countless Jewish organizations that all of you are involved in, that are great organizations that are going to benefit from the friendships that are made in this room. And it manifests itself through all the things that we do. Through the yeshiva and seminary, right? Through the branches that are around the globe doing great work day to day, TLI, Muslim meeting, all these in-person pieces. The Dan Family World Center, which we're on the cusp of getting our permit on the building. We'll talk about that another time. That's been a journey. But we're going to be putting in a world-class museum in there, and we have our in-person experiences, but the online is really where we've grown. It has given us the ability to find every Jew everywhere that we go around the world. And if they come and join us in one of our current programs, whether it's TLI or the yeshiva, the seminary, or any of the pieces or the branches, that's great. But if not, we're going to send them elsewhere. And as I answered that question that Chaim asked before, right, about Chabad, I had this beautiful conversation. He said, what do you do on campus? I said, I'm on every campus. I'm just on their phone. And I would like to send them to all the folks that are physically there. I'll admit it here, I pulled this off campus. We were on about a dozen campuses coming out of New York, and I actually pulled this off. Because I saw this is our pathway to do what other people weren't doing. And I could partner with those other people, right? We need to find them, charge them up, and then hand them off. And that's why I'm so excited about this next piece of the journey, where we set this audacious, crazy goal for 3 million Jews, right? Ellie and I were sitting in a donor's office. There's a rabbi there that basically looked at us and said, you guys are insane, right? And I got very defensive. I started explaining to him, how we're going to do it online. He goes, no, you're totally missing the point. It's good you're insane. Aish has to be insane, because then the rest of us have to hit your high bar. And so the next step, we could sit there, we've got 3.5 million followers, we're good on time, right? That's not enough. These people need community. We need to build community for these 3.5 million people. And look, I'll be honest with you, I don't know who those people are. I don't know. But if they come to my community, I will know them. And I'll be able to bring them closer, I'll be able to service them, and I'll be able to connect them. And it's never been more important than now. One of the things that we're finding, the old days of assimilation and intermarriage, it was tragic, it was horrible, but we lost a Jew, we lost a Jew. Today we have Jewish kids who hate the state of Israel, who hate Israel, who are marching against us because we haven't educated them. Elliot Matthias, Rabbi Matthias, there's an article in Aish not under his name. I think it's a pseudonym, but it's him. We got a call from one of our donors that his niece is anti-Israel. Can you speak to her? So Rabbi Matthias, who is the founder of Hasbara Fellowships, spoke to her on the phone a few times, and she said, could you come down and meet with my friends? So he comes down to Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, and he sits in an apartment filled with beautiful, precious Jews who hate Israel. Young Jews, and they don't know a lot. And they don't hate their religion. They just are so misinformed on the other facts. They deliver this worldview where they're comparing the Israeli army to Nazis. It's crazy, insane. And who do I blame for that? Pardon me, but I blame us. I blame us. We need to find them, and we need to make our case to them. I was in the Young Israel of Woodmere this Shabbos with the yeshiva was there. We were all there. We wound up. There were 8 services on Shabbat morning. We spoke in every single one of them. We were there for the weekend, and I got up and I told them, I said, Orthodox Jews in America today are 11 to 13%. If you throw in Reform, Conservative, pro-Israel community, you don't even hit 30%. Imagine how strong we would be. Every percentage point. We can raise that number and bring these Jews back to us. That's our responsibility, to connect them to the Almighty. I'm going to close with a story. A story very, very meaningful to me. I've told it all around the world, and I've added another piece to the story. And it's a story, it starts a little bit with my nephew. I think some of you know I have 2 nephews in the Israeli army. Both of them in special forces. Both of them spent the last 3 months in Gaza. They both were home for Shabbos for the first time in 3 months. This past Shabbos, it was a pretty amazing thing. One of my nephews got married before Sukkot, and he had his first Friday night dinner with his wife since he got married, this past Friday night. And so my 2 nephews, when they were going to the army, one of them was no problem. He went in, they put him in Maglan. They're the guys that ensure that no one from Haas breeds anymore. And my other nephew was trying to get in, and it was a disaster. Every time he tried out, it was COVID. They're like, oh, you failed your trials. He's like, I haven't tried out yet. It was like bureaucracy. Originally, he wanted to go to the Air Force. He was colorblind. He couldn't go there. It was hard. So I wanted to give him chizuk. I wanted to lift up his spirits. So I told him the following story. I told him a story which I told at Yaakov Gates' Shabbos table 2 days ago. I told him the story of a gentleman by the name of Victor Kalani. Victor Kalani, there was a point in my life where I started getting obsessed with the Yom Kippur War, and I read so many different books about the Yom Kippur War. And every book I read, I bumped into the same person, Victor Kalani. Victor Kalani was the officer in charge of the tanks in a place called Emek HaBacha, Valley of Tears. I believe there's an HBO series by that name now. And he was in charge of holding off Syria. Egypt, they still had to get across the whole Sinai, but the Syrian front was much more dire. And he was sitting there on this ridge, and I'm reading this story over and over again. He takes the mic, he starts to tell him, we got to go to the top, goes to the top, no one follows it, he goes back down, and he starts giving a real talking to all his guys. He says, look, Svat's very right behind us. We don't go to the top, they're next. So he goes to the top, they all go to the top, and they spend all night long holding off the entire Syrian army. And in the morning, they called him over the radio the hero of Israel. Right? Called him the hero of Israel, Victor Kalani. So I had read his book that he wrote, all the other books about him. And so one time I found myself in the Kiryat, right? That's like the Pentagon in Israel. And I found out he was there. I'm like, I don't know, I probably went places I shouldn't have, but I'm looking all over for him. I got to meet this guy, right? He's like my hero. So I finally find his office, I meet him. He's the cutest Taimani guy you ever met. Like a really great guy. He's like sitting there, we're schmoozing, and we're having a conversation where like he's starting to tell me stuff. I'm finishing the sentences because I know everything about him. And I asked him, I said, let me ask you one question, everything I read about you. I said, in all the stories I read about you, it said that, when you were first going to the army, your father said you could do whatever you want in the army, please don't go to tanks. His father's job had been, if tanks blew up, to clean up. He just couldn't deal with it psychologically. So Victor Kalani says, it's no problem, I'm going to be a pilot. He goes to be a pilot, he doesn't have full hearing in one of his ears, can't do it. It's fine, he's going to infantry. Goes to infantry, turns out he has flat feet, gets kicked out of infantry. Victor Kalani tries to go to every single part of the Israeli army, and no one will take him except for tanks. So I said to him, it seems to me that the Almighty wanted you in that tank on Yom Kippur. And he says, Atzatzo, he says, you're right. He agreed. And so I told this story to my nephew, and the postscript to my nephew is, he wound up getting into a unit which I had not heard about, most people had not heard about at the time as much, called Yahalom, Special Forces Engineers. They blow stuff up and they deal with tunnels. They are literally running the war right now. And he is an officer playing his role, and indeed, Kadosh Baruch Hu had a plan for him as well. But one of the things I always say about that story, as powerful as that story is, there is no doubt in my mind that God placed a Victor Kalani in that tank on Yom Kippur by Emek HaBacha. There's no doubt in my mind. But Kadosh Baruch Hu, but the Almighty did not make him go up that ridge. That was his decision. The Almighty places us in places that we can make a difference. But it's our call whether we want to do it or not. And so being here with all of you, engaged in these conversations, Aish is on an absolute amazing trajectory. I'm surprised, I shouldn't say it, I'm surprised even how quickly and how fast they've gone. But we're not going to be able to do it without your help. And I mean your help as partners. As partners. Figuring out what these next steps are, where we should push ourselves. Introducing us to your friends, to have conversations about how we gather more of the dollars. People keep asking me, they're like, well, if you had more dollars, what would you do? I said, I'd invest it online. Because we have developed the machine, the mechanics. And this machine was ready to go on October 8th. On October 8th. October 8th, they were ready when the war came to go out and greet all of those Jews trying to figure out why their best friends of last week hated them this week. We were ready for that. And so we need to double, triple our efforts. We're gathered here together as partners to figure out how to do that. And I have no doubt with us taking responsibility together, the Almighty will have our backs. The Almighty will make sure as we climb that hill, as we fight his fight, as we do good as only Jews can do in this world, that we will be successful together. Thank you.